to Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins. Let's Get Into It is a safe space to have real conversations that are meant to uplift, encourage, and let you know you are not the only one dealing with life. Each episode of Let's Get Into It is designed to provide illuminating and thought-provoking information on a variety of topics. In fact, no topic is off limit. If you would like to see a topic discussed, please feel free to make a recommendation. My special guest and I will have a great time discussing topics that the mainstream media wouldn't dare discuss. We will bring these conversations to you with an open mind, respectfully, from different perspectives, and most importantly, with love. Thank you for joining me and my special guest. Now, let's get into it. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Get Into It. I am your host, Sherelle Higgins, and I am excited today for two very different reasons. The first reason I'm excited, as many of you know who follow me on social media, I am a huge NFL fan. And yes, my team is the Chicago Bears. And yes, we are going to win against Minnesota on Monday night. So all of the people who follow me on social media that are a Viking fan, don't have me call you out. Yes, we are going to win. And I feel good about this upcoming season. I'm not feeling like the Dallas Cowboys feel during the off season where they think they're going to the Super Bowl. But I think we're going to see a huge difference in the team that we had last year versus the team we have this year. And so tonight, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I will be tuning in to watch the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, I will be texting and taunting people that I know who are fans of those two teams. So may the best team win. So with that being said, I am also excited about my next guest. I have not seen this person in many years. We grew up together in the city of Chicago, and he is an author. And we are going to talk about not one, but two of his books. So please join me in welcoming Marshall Davis to the podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome, Marshall.
Well, good evening, Ms. Sherelle. Thank you very much for having me on. Appreciate that.
Yes, Marshall and I both have nicknames, and we are going to try really hard not to call each other by our nicknames. So I am going to make it a habit of saying Marshall. Yes, I have to keep repeating it to remind myself not to call him by his nickname, and he's going to do the same for me, and I appreciate that.
So, but if it slips, it's okay.
Look, we know all Black people got nicknames.
Right.
And most of the people who follow me on social media knows my nickname, so they won't be surprised if you call me that.
Okay.
So that being said, let's talk about the first book. Define the truth and overcome it anyway. I will tell you that when I read that title, I had a very different expectation about what the book was going to be about. And so I was pleasantly surprised, but I also found out after reading the second book that these concepts can apply in almost any part of our lives. And one of the things I've done on this podcast is talk about some of these things. And I want to continue to bring those concepts home because, again, we can use them in almost every aspect of our life. But for your books, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. And of course, we are living in a country where that may be our only option for employment. And I know that many people are thinking about or actively engaging in running their own business. And so I think this podcast is going to really help people stop, think, and say, it's not just me, I got to keep grinding. And these are just obstacles that we may face as we build our businesses. So let's talk about some of the obstacles that you talked about in the first book was fear. Talk to us about why are people so fearful of starting their own business?
Well, first, giving all praise, glory, and honor to God. I'm going to start that way if you don't mind me doing that, because without Him, there is no me. And I'm going to tell you one of the things that I have actually noticed when we talk about fear is because of the fact that we're not used to either fear of failure or fear of success.
Mm.
We don't have a lot of times the opportunity to do these things. And when we do, we don't know how to face them because they're foreign to us, both fear of failure, fear of letting go of the investment of money and time. And we think that it can't happen to us, or we don't have another the chapters in my second book, patience, to run that race of going through something as an entrepreneur. People think nowadays that it's so easy to become an entrepreneur. And I can tell you, yes, it's easy to start to be an entrepreneur, but the word process comes into play. And again, it's because of the fear of not knowing if you're going to make it, or even the fear of if you do make it, what do I do next? And so those two things kind of play a part in the fact that fear for me was the very first chapter in my book, because that's one of the, if not the biggest obstacles we have to overcome today.
And I would also add to that that in the African American community, we weren't necessarily raised during our time to be entrepreneurs. We were
Yes.
raised, you go to school, you go to college, if you can afford to do that, or after high school, you get a job and you work your way up. We weren't taught about entrepreneurship. Our parents didn't. Most of our parents were not entrepreneurs, and they didn't teach us that in the public school systems. And so I think that plays a major role into people being fearful, because people get accustomed to that every 2 week paycheck, right? With the exception of teachers, they get paid once a month, but most
Right.
people every 2 weeks. And so people get so comfortable and used to getting that check every 2 weeks that they don't know how they would survive if they missed that paycheck, that constant, repetitious paycheck. And so, go ahead.
No, I was going to say tag team on the word comfortable. And I think it's one of the things as the reason why we are afraid to do things and like becoming an entrepreneur, starting our own business, is because we become so comfortable in the skin that we're in, so to speak. And people don't understand that in order to grow, you got to change, you got to move. You can't stay the way you are. And we can't hold on to what our parents taught us or what we know to be. In order to do something, even like what you're doing, we have to do something different. We have to step out the box in order to move and change and grow.
Yes, and we can't wait for the perfect time, the perfect opportunity, the perfect resources. You got to start somewhere. And so fear holds a lot of people back. Um, there's only one thing that I could think of off the top of my head that I am fearful of, and that's cats. I can't do nothing about that. It's just about I just can't do it. And many people who follow me on social media know I just can't. I don't do cats, no shape, form, or fashion. So that's where my fear is. But in terms of believing in myself, which we're going to talk a lot more about, I have no fear when it comes to that. Let's talk about doubt. Is it self-inflicted or is it the haters? Or is it both?
I'm I'm gonna give you a little bit of both. When you realize, and if you go through each one of the chapters of the both books that I've written, they actually kind of stair step each other. So you go from fear and you overcome fear, and you get ready to make that first move, and then here comes doubt right behind it, telling you you can't do that. Where'd that come from? It comes from inside. And a lot of times it is self-inflicted because you finally decided, I'm going to get over my fears, or at least face them, and then doubt, because you've never experienced making this move to entrepreneurship, it's going to tell you that you can't do something. And the thing is, not just us. But sometimes we'll tell a person, and the best way to kill a dream, Steve Harvey says, is to tell somebody else your dream. And that person will tell you that you can't do it. It won't work. You don't have the money. You can't invest. All of these things. So that's why I say it's some of both, because either A, you're fighting against yourself, or B, you tell another small-minded person your dream and they want you to shrink with them.
Yes, absolutely. And we know that because many of us lack that self-confidence, which we are going to talk about. And because of that, they believe that they can't do whatever it is that they want to do. Um, and we know that the haters are going to hate. And we know that they are going to be the ones to tell you, you shouldn't do that because, or you can't do that because. And all along, they are rooting for your demise. And that some of us absorb that and we make it our story and we believe it. And we walk a path that shows that we have this doubt that we should not be wherever it is that we are on our journeys. And so, doubt and fear, when you put those two together, it is catastrophic, right?
It definitely can be.
And so we have to believe in ourselves. Now, I'm going to disagree with Steve Harvey about the best way to kill your dream is to tell somebody. I think you got to tell somebody, because we can't do anything alone, right? And you got to be selective and who you tell. And you want to make sure that whoever it is you're telling, that they fully support you, understand your vision, not necessarily what their vision is for you, but understand your vision, and they are willing to help you bring your vision to life. So you got to tell somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
Sacrifice. I love that one because it is a sacrifice to be an entrepreneur, particularly in the beginning. You know, you may have to sacrifice that paycheck every 2 weeks. You may have to sacrifice your time because nobody's going to work harder on your startup business than you are. You may have to sacrifice time with your family just so that you could be grinding, because in the beginning, it's not necessarily going to be an easy journey. So there's lots of different sacrifices that people make to be entrepreneurs.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, especially given the fact that as a former manager for an automotive company here in Chicago, actually two of them, and now a manager for another company here in Chicago, you're still working on that part of, we call it the job. And
Right.
then there's something called your work, which is something that you have a passion for. And that is the thing that you have to sacrifice when you are trying to be in the business of being an entrepreneur. You have to understand, you mentioned the word time, and I talk about that as well, that you're going to have to sacrifice that a lot. And then money. It is a lot to say that I want to give my money. And that is even the wrong way to say stuff when you're talking about investing. So we don't say give my money. We say invest your money, because there's a difference, because that means you're putting that money in yourself. You're sacrificing the money that you're making on your job so you can put that into your career or your work, that passion that has you. Because if you really want something out of life, Sherelle, I gotta believe you have to give up something to get something. And that's where that word sacrifice comes from.
Yeah. And, a lot of people don't necessarily believe in investing in themselves. And I know a person who was trying to start a business, and they wanted free advice and guidance, right? And I'm like, ain't nothing free, right?
Nothing's free.
Or they want a discounted rate, right? And so
Absolutely.
I'm like, I don't think that's how that works. Because just like you are growing your business, I'm growing mine too. And the
Yeah.
way to grow my business is by receiving income from people who seek me out for advice. Now, if I'm going to give out some free advice, I will let everybody know it's free, right? But if it's related to my business, it's not free. And I don't
It's
have no
not free.
I don't have no discount coupons. I don't have no discount prices. You got to pay what everybody else pay, right? And so that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make by not getting your business, right? Because you
Yes.
don't want to pay me what I'm worth. You don't want to pay me
Yeah.
for my time. And so I'm willing to sacrifice doing business with you because you want something for nothing. And so that doesn't really work. But this one, I think, is this next concept, I think, is really, really key. Procrastination.
Ah, I could do one of these with that word.
Many of us procrastinate because, and a lot of times it's because we don't know where to start, right? We don't know how to start. We don't know, like it costs you in the state of Virginia $50 to start a business, to get your name on the list as a reputable business. It's $50, right? But people don't
Right.
necessarily do that. And they don't know who to go to even get that business license and that EIN number so that they can then begin tracking their expenses so that they can write it off on their taxes. Right? We got to give all that.
Absolutely.
And so we procrastinate. We waiting for, I'm gonna tell you, I procrastinated on this podcast, right? Starting this podcast. And the reason why I procrastinated is because I was waiting for the right title to pop in my head. I wanted something catchy. I wanted something that stood out. And so I went back and forth and round and round. And then I really had to stop and think about what would be the framework for the podcast because the title should reflect that.
Yes.
And I initially started out thinking I was going to do a podcast on politics and call it Porch Politics. But I didn't want to be roped into a single topic. I wanted to be able to talk about everything or anything, right?
Right.
So today, let's get into it.
Yeah.
And I was like, there it is, boom. And so I launched it after that. And it's been almost 2 years. So it's working.
Well, when thinking about even the title of this podcast, let's get into it. The word procrastinate, you said, is because you wanted it to feel right and you think it was right. But that's what happens. We are so caught up on trying to make it perfect until we miss out on the opportunity to get started and we grow as we go. And so that's a lot of times what happens when you procrastinate is because of your thinking of perfection. I got to get this right, or it's not going to work. Well, a lot of things won't work if you never get started to find out. And that's one of the biggest things about procrastination is you can't know if it's something that's going to work or not if you don't try. And you'll sit around and you'll think about it and again procrastinate. And that's why I said I could grab my head because that has been one of my biggest downfalls is the word procrastination. I put off so many different things, so many different projects I wanted to start, so many money ventures that I could have been a part of. And the more I think about my life in letting go or holding back or delaying it, the further I say, wow, I could have easily been here if I had just let go and started. And so procrastination for me has been my biggest obstacle. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote the book is because I felt like I wasn't alone.
You're definitely not alone on procrastination. I'm still procrastinating something. Even though I keep hearing people keep from different parts of my life keep saying the same thing to me. And I have procrastinated on it. I thought about it. I kind of started it, not really. But I'm still procrastinating and it's been years. So maybe one day I'll, as they say, get off the pot and do it. But for now,
there you go.
And it's not, I don't want it to be perfect. It's just because I'm like, do I really want to do it? and what does it look like? What would be my message?
Yeah.
Can people glean from what it is that I want to share? Um, and so many people have said to me, I should write a book on leadership. Um, and or I should just write a book, right? And
Right.
okay, with leadership, I'm just like, ugh, it's such a dying thing these days, right? Leaders are not leaders. Leaders are people who are put into a position based on who they know, not what they know, and not because they are good leaders, but because they know somebody. And so
Right. I
I
agree.
know. I'm like, they don't want my old school way of doing leadership. Like, you got to show up. You got to be who you gonna be. You can't be
That's
flipping
right.
around. You can't be showing up in the office talking about don't talk to me till I get my coffee, all that foolishness. When you show up, you got to be ready to go.
You
And
got
so,
to be ready to go. That's right.
but a lot of people don't believe that. Leaders I've seen, leaders I've worked for, leaders who were peers of mine. I was just like, ugh, okay.
But it's actually a dying art. Even in being a leader, in the past 35 plus years of my life being a leader, not just having to show up, but knowing that I'm somebody's example. You have to understand that when you become a leader, and I think about, over the years, me growing up and working in the automotive industry, how many times people have looked up to me, or a customer has come back, or even a member of management that once worked with the company have come back and told me how much they thought about me and they appreciated the way I led them, or I gave them the right advice and it worked for them. And that is something that you cannot overlook. So as a leader, it takes a lot, and to know that you must be an example for somebody else, because you never know who's watching. You never know.
You never know, but you will find out later.
Yeah.
There's somebody's example. Yes, sir. Yes, that's so.
Hmm.
As a leader, you have to set this. You have to set the standard. You
Yeah.
have to set the environment, and you have to be authentic, right? And
Right.
how you lead, and what you say, and how you say it, and because, like you said, somebody is watching. You know, and we have to make sure as leaders. I was a leader for a very long time when I used to have a thing called a job. In case anybody watching didn't know, I'm retired.
Lucky you.
Yes, and I love every minute of it. Right,
Mhm.
and that's another example that I had to display for the people who worked for me. Right.
Mhm.
Yes, most people, I couldn't get everybody, and that's fine. But most people liked working for me. And so when it came time for me to retire, most people wanted me to stay, not necessarily because of it was going to benefit me, but it was going to benefit them. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes you got to make decisions, which we're going to talk about, but sometimes you got to make decisions for yourself and not for other people. And so while I hated leaving certain people on my team, some of them I could do without, right? Because, employees think that you like them more than they like you.
Why is that? I wonder. But I guess that is a part of
because,
being a
because
leader. I
we can't
mean, if
say
you
it.
didn't feel that from them, that means you were doing something right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they thought we couldn't say it until I started saying it. I'm like, well, I don't like you no more than you like me. So here we are. Make this work. Always had that smart mouth.
Yeah. No comment on that one.
Okay, so we kind of touched on time management a little bit, but let's delve into that. Like what is time management for people who want to be entrepreneurs? What does that really mean for them?
Well, everybody's going to have their own interpretation of time management. I was thinking about the fact that when I was writing the first book, I would wait until my wife would go to sleep, um, or I had time at like 12 or 1 in the morning, and I would write then. And so, no matter how much we look at time and managing it, it never seems like there is enough of it. But that's what I actually don't believe. I believe there is enough time for us to get things done. It's how we prioritize. And that word comes into play when we're talking about time management. You have to prioritize what's most important to you, what's next, and what's least important, because some of the things that you think you can wait for, you actually can. Some of the things that you put off, you actually can. And you can get back to those. But those things that you prioritize as most important, that'll have value to you, that will make sure that something gets done and completed, that will help you to say, hey, I did this. This is done. I can get that out the way and won't have to look back at it. Some of those things you have to prioritize over the others. And I believe that's where the balance of time management comes into play, is when you prioritize what it is that's most, middle, and least important to you.
And that's a good way to look at that, because we have, people say we have 24 hours in the day, but we really don't.
No.
Right? Because we're not up 24 hours a day every day. So we don't have 24 hours. We got to sleep sometime. And depending on, how your body functions, some people need 6 hours, some people need 8 hours. So you may not the entire 24 hours, but you do have to prioritize how you spend your waking hours.
Absolutely.
What are you going to do during those waking hours? And so, time management is key. It's critical, whether you're an entrepreneur or you working for somebody else, right? When you get tasks at work, you have to manage your time to get it all done, which is no such thing. And that's why they call it work, because it just keeps not like you like, "Ooh, I did everything I need to do. I'm good for 30 days." No, tomorrow is something else.
Yeah.
So we manage our time.
And it's always something.
It's always something. And that something is always critical. It's always urgent. It's always, you got to do it right now. Matter of fact, I needed it yesterday. And so that is one of the main things that I do not miss about going to an employer. Is that, crisis mode. Everything is urgent. Everything needs to be done yesterday. What's taking so long? I just asked you 15 minutes ago. You mean to tell me you're not finished yet? Like, I'm so over that. And so now the way I run my business is, your emergency is not my emergency. Right? And I'm willing to say, no, I can't do it if you wait till the last minute. And put me in a position where you are pleading for me to do it. Now it's going to cost you more money.
So you got to get them either in the rinse or in the wash, right?
Right. You waste you trying to dictate how I spend my time, and I can't allow that, and unless it's for a fee. And so my time is very valuable. And I think as entrepreneurs, we have to understand what our value is. And we got to be willing to put our value on the line. Absolutely. So that people understand that I know what I'm worth. And if you come to me at the last minute with some foolishness, it's going to cost you more.
Say, come correct. Don't come at all.
Don't come at all.
One of the things that my brother told me one time is, especially dealing with time management, when you have something to do, people always find something for you to do for them. And he said, just try to tell them no and see, doesn't it still get done? Just because you won't do it, they'll find somebody to get it done, whether it's you or somebody else, if they really want it done. And I actually found out that works, especially in my own family. Sometimes you just have to say no. And that's how you manage your time, especially in your family, because your family can always find something for you to do for them. And they don't realize that you have things you have to do yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I love the word no. Honor. One of the things I've learned to do as an overachiever, which I'm trying to work on not being, is the word, telling people no more, right? And if I say to do something for you, I'm going to do it on my time, not on your time. And so if you can't wait for my time, however long that might be, I'm not even giving you a time frame. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, but it's going to
Right.
be time, not yours. And so that I like that for me. Like it's really working because before I would, as an overachiever, if I said I would do X, Y, and Z for you, I'm gonna be on top of it right away. Boom, boom, boom. And now that's done. Now you can go and live your life. And now I'm over here stressed out and overwhelmed because I didn't spend my time on some stuff for you.
Right.
So I don't do that anymore. I'm like, yeah, I'll take a look at it.
And then sometimes the worst part about that is when you need them, they can easily tell you no. They love to say no to you. When you need somebody, but they love to say no to you. But how dare you say no to them?
Right, exactly.
So,
Yeah, I had a situation where, I have been helping somebody with something free of charge, right? Just out the goodness of my heart, because I got a big
of
heart
course.
and I'm kind to people. And then I asked them to do something for me, and it never got done. And not only did it not get done, you never even came back and told me you wasn't going to be able to do it. So you just had me waiting. So yes, I did find somebody else to do it, but now I understand the rules of engagement.
Yeah.
And
you
so,
like I say, you'll find out who's in your corner when things like that come about. Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and it was interesting because a third party who had nothing to do with what I asked somebody to do, was like, well, they pulled in so many different directions. I said, I don't have nothing to do with that. So am I. Like, ain't nobody on this earth no busier than the next person.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're gonna do something, let's get it done. And if you can't do it, you say you could, just tell me. Like, don't have me sitting around waiting, right? Because
Right.
now I'm looking at you sideways.
I'm learning that more and more from my wife. She's kind of firm in her decisions, and I see when she picks her battles, it's yes, yes, and no, no, and she don't sway. You usually get a yes, it's going to be yes. If it's a no, it's going to be a firm no. I don't think about it. She just says yes or no, and she goes with that. And even in entrepreneurship, sometimes you have to be that way. One of the things I found out about an entrepreneur is you have to be able to make a decision usually within 5 seconds. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for you to make that decision to pull the trigger and go do something or not. So a lot of people don't realize that. And that there again goes that time management. Where do you prioritize? What do you value? So you have to think about that when we're talking about time management, definitely.
Yeah. So let's talk about volume 2. And let's talk about adversity, because
Ooh,
you cannot live on this earth and not experience adversity.
yes.
There's no way. And so why was it important to you to include the chapter on adversity?
Well, you basically answered that question, but I'm gonna expound on it a little bit more. There is this thing called life that we live every single day. And the thing is, we believe that there's nothing's supposed to happen bad. Everything is supposed to be good. I even think about, I have to put it this way, when people come to church and they give their life over to God, they think that, okay, I've done it. Everything's supposed to go good from there. No, as a Christian, we got to know, and not even just as a Christian, even an everyday person, individual, you have to know there's going to be something happening in your life. And a lot of times, like you said earlier, it's self-inflicted based on a decision that you made or didn't make, a yes or a no that you did not answer to something that was asked of you. And so adversity is going to follow you. There are going to be moments. And I think about God and how he treats us, where he puts us in different moments of time. And we have to figure out, why did this thing happen? So when we go through these adverse conditions, it's not exactly right. Remember, he wants us to lean and depend on him. And I have to apologize if I don't bring him up enough. And I'm going to try and keep him out of it. But he's a part of my life. He's a part of my conversation. And I have to bring him into it because that's who he is. But he never told us, Sherelle, that we were going to have a worry-free life. He actually said, in this life, there will be trouble. It's in the Bible. And you don't have to be, again, you don't have to be a Bible scholar to know. All you got to do is look around and see that you're going to go through some things. But it's not just to go through them, it's how do you grow through them. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond that's going to make a difference in your life. So that's why I wrote the book on adversity, because again, in order to be successful in things that you do in this life, you're going to have to go through some things in order to get to some things.
And you know what's interesting about it, particularly as it relates to being an entrepreneur? We go into these jobs every day and we face adversity for all different reasons.
Yes.
And yet we are afraid or fearful of facing adversity as an entrepreneur.
We
Isn't
will
that
do it on our own jobs, but we won't do it for ourselves. Again, and even in that, you think about that as an entrepreneur, you sign up for something that you want out of life. And as far as I know, nothing was given to you unless your daddy was a billionaire already and you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You want to be an entrepreneur, you're going to go through some things. You have to, because you got to learn what mistakes not to make, what decisions not to give into. Like Thomas Edison, they asked him one time, you failed at making the light bulb over 1,000 times. And he said, well, no, I didn't fail. He said, it was all feedback. And so when you go through adversity, it's not just moments of trial and tribulation, they're growing moments. They're times to learn something from what you're going through so that you can get out of it. And then here's the best part for me. When you're going through adversity, it's not just for you to keep it inside. That's why I wrote these books, is because I'm not the only one going through adverse conditions. But I would love for somebody to look at my book, read the chapter on adversity, and say, hey, I went through that. That sounds like something I went through or I'm going through right now. This is how I can get out of it. It may not be the only solution, but it's definitely one of them.
Yeah, and that analogy with Thomas Edison is a great analogy because when we are going through, as he was trying to develop light, um, he was learning lessons along the way so that he
Absolutely.
could really get to the place where the light bulb would come on. And whenever I'm going through adversity, I always ask myself, what's the lesson in this? Because I don't want to repeat it, right? Because we know that if we don't learn the lesson, we're more likely to repeat the behavior, the bad decisions. And so for me, I'm always like, okay. And one of my famous questions that people probably hate to hear me ask is, what did you learn?
What did you learn? Right. That's it. Yeah. And you
And
have to
so,
ask yourself that sometimes. Yeah.
yeah, I had to ask my brother-in-law that a couple of weeks ago. Oh, well, last week when I was in Chicago, what did you learn? That's all a different story, though. So this one right here, this self-confidence. I have said on this podcast a few times that it blows my mind that people lack self-confidence. And it blows my mind that I didn't even know that that was a thing until I was well into adulthood and really started witnessing it. And so let's talk about why it's important to have self confidence, not only as you venture out to become an entrepreneur, but just in general. Now, you've been knowing me a long time, so you already know my confidence.
Yes, I know your company.
Been up my whole life, but why it's important for us all to have self confidence.
So confidence. Now, I've read something earlier where it said we shouldn't have self-confidence. We should have God confidence.
Mm,
But the thing about self-confidence is what you had said earlier about taking on becoming an entrepreneur and starting this podcast. You believed in something. You had to. And again, you're right. Let me tell everybody that's listening about you and that word confidence. I have never, and I'm gonna be the first to tell you this, and I've been knowing you a long time. I have never seen somebody so confident as you. And at one time I thought it was cocky or arrogant, But the more I thought about you and the way you would talk and the way it was confidence, it was just being, it was just knowing who you are in your own skin. And you didn't care what nobody else thought about you. You were you. And you either take it or you leave it. And that's how I always thought about you. Hey, you see what you see. Sorry if you don't see something else. You're going to take me or you're not. And that's been you for as long as I've known you. Even in, like I said, I see you in Facebook or wherever, it's you're you. And that's what I love about you. That's what we do lack, is that we have to be confident in who we are. And to say that, I'm connected to the second chapter of acceptance. Accept who you are. And you have, Sherelle, I've always known you to accept who you are. And you don't, there's no qualms about it. I am who I am, and I've accepted that. So you have to deal with me or not, you know?
Yeah, and it's so funny because one of my really, really good friends, like a brother to me, um, I sent him two pictures, both of me, and one I was much heavier, and one I wasn't. And I said to him, I said, "Oh man, I didn't even realize I had gained so much weight. Why didn't you tell me?" And his response was, "Because you had so much confidence, I didn't think it mattered."
It would matter.
I said, and it didn't. But people, cherry pick what they don't like about themselves. Particularly women do it a lot, and they vocalize it. And I'm just like, this is just how I look. I don't know what to tell you, right? Like when I was a kid, they used to tell me, I had a big forehead. So what? I don't care. This the head I got. Now everybody like, oh, your head perfect for that haircut. I'm like, oh, so suppose I had grown up like, oh God, I gotta always have a bang down the head to cover my forehead, right? I would never
Right.
have the freedom of not having no hair. So, it just depends on how it all works. Hold on, let me see.
Mhm.
Sharon said the 34 Strengths Assessment supports that no matter who and where people are, their 34 strength is self assurance. Mine is number 5. Self assurance is predicated on many things: trauma, religion, family dynamics, etc. Yeah, you already know what my number one was. Because and so it's always baffling to me how and I guess a lot of it has to do with your life experience, right? But
Absolutely.
never was one to absorb what other people think about me, because I know me better than anybody.
Right.
And so I don't know, like, why you think you can have an opinion on me, right? And I know people think they do, but I'm like, I don't care nothing about your opinion on me. And you can't accurately judge me when you can't accurately judge yourself. And so, having that confidence is critical.
And that's why I mentioned the second chapter of my book, second book, acceptance. See, a lot of people won't accept who they are. In order for you to move from where you are, you have to start somewhere. And to accept who you are and where you are in that moment before you start moving forward, it'll actually bring the word perspective into perspective, because now you're understanding, hey, this is who I am up until now. How do I move from there to here? How do I grow? How do I change who I am or who I'm going to become? Unless I accept where I am, I have to do that in order for me to grow. At least I do.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. You have to accept who you are, right? And that's not to say you can't change. If there's
All
some
right.
things, like if you're a liar, right? You don't really want to be a liar. That's something you can change, right? And so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you should seek out to make that change, and that
Yeah.
makes you a better person, right? And so that can help boost your confidence because now you have stripped all of the facade and you are showing up authentically as yourself. And so, accept who you are, like, and forget what everybody else think about it because they don't really know your story, right? They
No,
don't know
they
anything.
don't.
They only know what you either showed them or put on social media. That's it,
Yeah.
right? They don't really know you or what your story is, what your trauma is, none of that. But a lot of people have experienced some significant trauma, and so that has impacted their ability to have self-confidence. And I get
Yeah,
that. But there's help for that. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to be stuck, right? You can
that's
go and
right.
help for that and continue to move forward and grow into who you think you want to be, because you don't really know who you want to be until you get there and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. And so you talked about decision making and how important it is to make those decisions. You got to be able to, first of all, make a decision, whether it's yes,
Yes.
whatever, and not only be able to make a decision, but stand by your decision and communicate your decision so that everybody else understand where you stand.
See that if you look at it this way, that's where self-confidence and decision making kind of go hand in hand with one another. You just mentioned that. Do you know, Sherelle, we are one decision away from changing our life for either the good or the bad. And it doesn't take but one decision. And that's why it's so important when you're looking at decision making that, again, like you say, hey, this is what I want. And I have to be confident in what I want. So I'm gonna make this decision. This is the way I'm gonna go. And that's it. I gotta move forward with my life. I gotta decide that I'm tired of looking at my life as it is. But the thing is, Sherelle, only you can make that decision to move forward. And if you want to know what you've been thinking about or your decisions have been up to this point, just go back and look at your life. Look at your results. That's how you know what it is that you've been thinking about all this time. So when you make decisions, make them voluntarily and then make them with some confidence behind them and say, hey, this is going to happen for me. It's going to happen because I made the decision. And again, like you said, it's okay to talk to somebody about a decision that you're going to make. You're going to ultimately be responsible for it in the end, but there's nothing wrong with input from somebody else who may know more than you or can help you make that decision at times.
Yeah, Sharon always says the 5 second decision, and you mentioned the 5 second decision earlier, but 5 seconds can change your life for
Yes.
good or for bad. When you think about the crime that's happening, right, throughout the world, right, people have
Mm-hmm.
the decision in 5 seconds to participate in a crime,
Yeah.
and as a result, many of them end up spending the rest of their lives in jail or they dead, right?
And,
But because of that 5 second decision.
and I hate to say this, a friend of ours back in a few years, I'm just going to say a few years ago, asked me a question and wanted me to make a decision to sell drugs with him. And I actually thought about it because he mentioned the word money. And at that time, I didn't have a whole lot of it. I was working. But when he mentioned that, I actually did something that I should not have done. It should not even been a thought for me to make that decision to say yes or no, but the word money was involved. And it took me a whole day to decide no. But I'm glad I didn't because unfortunately, he's no longer here. And thank God because of him putting me aside and anointing me to be a part of what he has for me to do. I'm still here. And so I made a decision with his help to not do that. I could have easily done it, but I'm thankful and I'm grateful that I did make that decision to sell drugs. I made the decision to do what I'm doing now, and here I still am. Only by His grace and mercy.
Well, it's so I have this conversation often with people. Um, it's always interesting to me how certain crimes come to be, right? Particularly when you're talking about multiple people being involved. So, for example, recently there were a lot of armor car robberies, right? And so it was multiple people involved. And so I often ask the question, how does that even start? Like you sitting around kicking it, y'all chilling, and somebody come up with an idea. I know what we can do to give money. We can rob armored car drivers. The first thing I'm gonna say is you probably don't want to have this conversation around me because the minute the police ask me how am I doing, I'm telling everything I know. So you probably won't have a conversation around me, right? Yes, I'm a snitch, and I'm okay with being a snitch, right? And so I'm like, so how do people just be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, count me in? Like, are you crazy? Like, I don't understand how those conversations flow to the point where people agree to participate in something they know is illegal and they shouldn't be doing. I just don't get that. But it could have a lot to do with not accepting who they are, right? And what their current circumstances are. It
Right.
might have something to do with them lacking self confidence, right? And their ability to make money legitimately. It
Mhm.
might have something to do with their upbringing, family full of drug dealers. So they think that's the way you're supposed to go, even though they see the results of dead or in jail, they still make those decisions because God gave us freedom of choice.
Yes, he did.
And
Yes,
so
he did.
freedom of choice, you gotta just make sound decisions. So making those decisions are just so important. And, as we are making decisions, one of the things we need to do, particularly being entrepreneurs, is have patience. I'm not good with patience. God's still working on me with that. I know that that's going to be a full-time job for him till I die.
Yeah, you're in a long line with them.
So let's talk about why it's important to have patience.
Well, here's the alternative. To try to do things in a hurry, like we just talked about, go out and rob somebody, or eventually that the law of averages will catch up with you when you're trying to do something like that. If you really want to be an entrepreneur, you have to know that it is going to take time. And even if you look on Facebook, Instagram, and you talk about these people, you can make $100 million in 30 days. And where do you get that from? Why do we fall into that trap that money is to be made in a hurry? It's not. And then they say, all money is not good money. So the patience part of that is, again, once you make a decision that you're going to be an entrepreneur, that you're going to pursue something that you are passionate about, you have to understand that it is going to take time to develop. Just like a baby when it's born, when it's developing in the stomach, even after it comes out, it's going to take time to develop. And you're going to have to understand that you have got to be patient and know that, hey, patience is a virtue. And eventually, all good things come to those who wait. I think those are the words from the scriptures, not from me. It's good things come to those who wait. And so sometimes you have to deal with being patient while you're going through and understand that it's going to happen, but it's going to happen in its time.
My wise father-in-law told me when I first started my career, I was considering leaving government and going to private industry because I can make more money. And he said to me, don't chase the money will come. And that always stuck in my head. And he was absolutely right. Don't chase the money will come.
And let me piggyback on that. They say the same thing about being a motivational speaker, or if you want to do something like this, you have to understand that you're not doing it for money. And that's what they told me too, is that do it to make an impact and the income will follow. If you're doing it for the right reasons, the money will find you. You don't have to go searching for money. When people see that your calling is what it is, as far as me being an entrepreneur and I'm trying to make an impact and a difference in somebody's life, they'll pay you for that. There's money out there waiting for you. It'll come to you. You don't have to chase it down.
Yes, that is for sure. And I love that for me, that I listened. Most people don't listen to wiser people. Because,
Yes.
we all think we know everything. And so we think the older, wiser, more experienced people know less about life than those who just got to life. And wrong. And I'm so thankful that I listened to people who, was telling me things that was good for me. Gave me some blueprints to follow, and I followed them to the T. And I was like, shoot, if they telling me this, that must mean I need to do it, right? Because they didn't have
Right.
to information with me. You know, he could have let me walk out the government with my crazy behind and gone to chase that money out in private industry to be at some point laid off, terminated, no rights, get ready for retirement, and now I ain't got no health insurance. When I could I got my health insurance. So let's talk about, I'm not going to go over all of them because I want people to read your book, to buy your book and read it. But let's talk about limitations. And I coined this phrase when Sarah Palin was running as the vice president with John McCain. Know your limitations, Sarah Palin. She had clearly stepped well beyond her limitations. So just know your limits, you know, like what are you willing to do? Right? What are you not willing to do? You got to know that. You got to know that for yourself, and you got to be comfortable communicating that.
Well, let me go back to something you just said when we talk about limitations. You had to learn from somebody who was wiser, who had more experience than you. There's only so much we can do, especially when, as an entrepreneur, you're starting out and you don't research what it is that you actually do. Because some of us just jump out from the seat of our pants and we just try. Steve Harvey said, jump and open up the umbrella on the way down. But the thing is, we sometimes fall into a situation where we don't know more than that person who has spent the last 20 years in the same field that you are in. Why do you think they require you to pay them that sum of money that you talked about earlier? That, hey, you have to pay for time. You have to pay for experience. It's because of your limitations. There are limits to things that we can do. And sometimes it's going to require that you pay for or invest. Let me put the right word out there. Invest in what you seek from life. And this man, this woman who's been through the fire, they've been through all of the ups and downs. They've been through all of the limitations that you're either in or getting ready to go into, and they can help you out. And that's why I put limitations in this, because you have to understand you have certain limits in life, especially as an entrepreneur. You don't know everything. Nobody knows everything. But even in your field, somebody knows a little bit more than you do, and they can get you there faster. It goes that word patience again, but still they can help you get there faster than you could on your own. This is one of the things I think about when you look at people at McDonald's. I look at the seniors that sit around at McDonald's and they talk among themselves, and they talk about all of the history of the time they did this and did that. And they could take that same energy and go into the grammar schools and high schools and talk to these young men and young women. Do you know how much better this world could be? Because they face the limits that these young men and women are going through right now. They know how to get out of it, but they're holding that information to themselves. And it's time to let that go so that these young men and women have a chance.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, which is a whole different conversation. These young people, they don't even listen to their parents anymore because the parents don't demand it. So the generation going into the school trying to tell these kids, you know, some wisdom, they ain't listening. They still gonna be out here being knuckleheads,
right?
It's the hard way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but one of the things that I'm trying to do. Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that I'm doing is I'm going to be going into the high schools and trying to get these young men and young women to listen. And it's right. It's an art form that we've lost, and we've got to try to get it back. And we have to work on them now while they're still growing up.
Yes, and that's one of the things I would like to do as well, go into the school system, particularly the middle school age kids and high school age kids, to really talk about, you know, like, where do you go from here, right? Because college is now unaffordable and unattainable for a lot of people. So where do you go from here? Like, because these 4 years are having, let's hope you're not in there more than 4 years, but some people may take a little longer. You know, where do you go after that? What are you going to do with yourself? You know, how are you, you know, some of these kids don't have access to people who can tell them about managing money, who can tell them about investing in the stock market, who can tell them about, you know, what it really means to have a car payment, and to really know that if you got a car payment or a car, you need to have insurance, right? And yeah, insurance is the biggest scam on the earth, but it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Need not have it.
Is that for car insurance is life insurance. And so these GoFundMe's for covering funerals, I'm like, come on, you could have had a $10,000 policy for a little or nothing, right?
Right.
And we go out and we spend all of these money on things, but we don't secure how our loved ones is going to bury us, right?
Right.
Because you can't take them Jordans with you. They put them in the casket with you, or if you decide to be cremated, they're not going to do that. And so, you know, we have to start at some point educating these kids on the importance of investing in their 401ks, right? What is a 401k? What, you know, like, how do you get access to it? How do you, you know, invest in it? Like, we got to do that, because when we go on these jobs, they're going to tell you a little bit about it, but they're going to tell you a lot about a whole lot of other stuff that you're not even going to absorb what's really important.
And it's funny you mentioned that, and believe it or not, the first book that I wrote is actually because of that reason. The word legacy came to me when my mom passed in '97. And at that time, there were still 9 of us alive. And I said at that time, why don't we start a legacy fund where we get, each member will put money in a year, a certain amount, and every year we keep growing on to that. So we would never have to worry about trying to bury a person that's in our family, because that's what happened. My mom passed and she let her insurance lapse. And so it happened again 12 years later. My brother passed, and the same thing. We didn't have enough money to bury him properly. So we had to borrow money from our relatives. And I was thinking about how much money we would have had even in those 12 years had we started the legacy fund. And like you said, how can you know to do better if nobody tells you? If we're not being told, if nobody's telling us, hey, you should do this. And here's another thing is we don't even talk about things like death, which we know is going to happen, insurance, putting some money away. And those are the things that we need to bring back to the forefront and tell people about, hey, these things are going to happen whether you want them to or not. How do you prepare for it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you prepared for it?
Preparation is key.
Yes.
So with that being said, it is 7:32. I have gone over by 2 minutes, but it's all good because I was caught up in this conversation. A legacy fund is a great idea. Of course, you know, when you're trying to do something like that, it's going to be some people who ain't going to participate. So you just got to know going in. They're going to have all different reasons, but let mama die. They're going to be the first ones there trying to get something.
Right.
So, with that, I want to thank Marshall for being my guest. The name of his book is Define the Truth and Overcome It Anyway, volumes 1 and 2. And where can they buy the book?
2 places. Number one, they are both on Amazon, because a lot of why people feel like your book has to be on Amazon and say you've arrived, but and also on my website at www.lewislegacies.com. lewislegacies.com.
All right, go out and get his book, get yourself educated, and understand you are not alone. With that being said, again, thank you. I'm going to take you off the screen so I can do my What the Hell segment.
All right, thank you.
Whew, let's talk about what the hell. In the beginning, on my intro, I talked about it being the NFL season. And I know that many of you follow me on social media. And so if I send you a what the hell meme, then you know you have said something about my Chicago Bears that's not flattering to me or my Chicago Bears. So save yourself from receiving a what the hell meme from me, because you are not going to say anything negative about my Bears. So as we did last year and the year before and the year before, no matter what the score is, the answer is go Bears. We won. You understand? Repeat it with me right now. Go Bears. We won. Otherwise, I'm going to be asking you what the hell. thank you for tuning in with me and my special guest. I appreciate your support. I will see you in 2 weeks, and I promise you this next show is not only going to be hilarious, it's going to be very insightful and very formative. So join me again in 2 weeks. Have a great night. Thank you for joining and participating in Let's Get Into It. I want to thank my special guest for being brave enough to get into it. Without you, these conversations cannot happen. Remember, different viewpoints, respect, and love are the foundations of Let's Get Into It. If there's a topic you think I should discuss, drop me a recommendation. If you're interested in being my special guest, let me know, because we can and will get into it. Have a great day on purpose, and I look forward to your continued engagement and support as we get into it.